Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, Premier League 2023-2024 season fast approaching. I don't know why, because it has been a very, very short period of time, but it feels like a really long time since I feel like I watched a proper football game. I think I'm definitely getting the itch back. I'm ready to have my weekends and my midweeks filled with football again. And what I'm going to do, this is probably going to become part of a 4 or 5 video series over the course of the summer until the end of the transfer window. I'm just going to give Premier League table predictions basically as the transfer window develops, as we start to see players come in, players go out, how that impacts how I feel about certain teams and what I'm expecting from them from the season going forward. What I wanted to do, and I'll get a lot of the more predictable ones out of the way quite quickly, and then I'll dwell on the ones that I think are a little bit more of kind of hot takes or kind of stronger opinions I have, or ones that maybe go against the norm a little bit. I think this is a really important table to look at. First of all, this is from Transfermarkt. Anybody who follows me knows how highly I rate the guys at Transfermarkt, and also the CIES Football Observatory. These are fantastic websites, along with FBref as well. If you want to kind of increase your knowledge a little bit more on kind of more of the business side of football as well, and just looking at some of the analytics as opposed to just general pub chit chat, this is something I'd really recommend. But here you've got a couple of interesting things. So the clubs are in order here. You can see they're currently in order of the total market value of each of the squads. And as you can see, it kind of came up in the news recently, but Arsenal recently surpassed Manchester City, who have those 3 trophies by their name, with 1.21 billion. So again, Arsenal have spent a good amount of money, but there's also been a lot of, a lot of that is from really, really smart purchases, and also good academy produce as well, with the likes of Bukayo Saka. Martinelli is somebody a good buy. Martin Odegaard is another good buy. And, Saliba, Gabriel, these are good purchases, which have then developed into players who are now worth more money, Ramsdale, etc., etc. But what you've got here is the squad size, the average age of the squad, the amount of foreigners in the squad, the average market value of each of the teams, and then the total market value. Again, just to see the kind of realm we're in here. You see Luton Town down there, 39.8 million euros is the value of their squad. That's like an average one of Arsenal's players' value. So you can see the kind of difference there as well. Again, some things that are kind of fascinating, the amount of foreign players that are in squads as well. You see an increase usually higher up the table, and then usually down the bottom you get some of these slightly lower numbers as well. Again, just kind of fascinating. And then also looking at the average age of squad as well. So you see how young Chelsea are, 23.7, and then a team like Fulham, for example, a team like West Ham, that are up the kind of upper sides of 27 as well. So as much as you might not think that's a really, really big deal, it does just help inform your thoughts as well. And then the squad size here down the sides, you can see a couple really bloated teams, Manchester United, Arsenal, Brighton and Hove Albion, 38 players on their books, 36 at Nottingham Forest. So again, just interesting to see where we start things out. I know I've kind of dwelled on this for a while, but yeah, just wanted you to be able to get a good look at that and just see where maybe your team stacks up. So what I've done, I've created this tier list, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the spots. We're going to look at we're going to go from obviously relegated all the way through to the champions. And it's just my personal opinions of where I think these teams are going to go. I'll try and keep it short and sharp, which I know I'm not very good at doing. But I've got a few notes written down here. I just want to kind of read off my notes and we can go from there. So first of all, 20th position, in a surprise to absolutely no one, we've got Luton Town. Look, guys, Luton Town have absolutely no right to be in the Premier League, just in terms of that they have a right to be in it because they deserve to be there. They won the playoffs, of course, but in terms of the way they operate, their structure, the quality of the squad, the quality of just everything around the football club is not Premier League ready, not even close. This is going to be, I've got here written in my notes, I think, worst Premier League record ever, Derby County, your record might be in danger here, Luton Town. There might be the odd plucky game where they really dig in and get kind of lucky, but this is going to be a total class shift for this Luton Town team. I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they stay in the league. But more than anything, I hope that the massive amount of money that Luton Town are going to get here, I hope they invest it in infrastructure. I hope that it goes towards training facilities. I hope that it goes towards coaching and staff and the stadium and all that kind of stuff. I don't think Luton Town should spend beyond their means just to stay in the Premier League. Take your money, get relegated, invest it well, maybe come back when you're better set to do it. But Luton Town, I can't see doing any better than 20th. In at 19th, I have Sheffield United as another relegated team. I can't really say anything that relates to this team in terms of overall quality. They've got a couple of nice players, generally speaking. Sander Berge is somebody who stands out as quite a nice player. They might upset the odd team, but again, similarly to Luton Town in many ways, there's a huge gap in quality. I just can't see them outperforming a spot like that. Again, there's no ulterior motive here as it relates to Luton Town, Sheffield United, or the team I'm about to say next. I don't want them to go down. It would just be my prediction based on the way they're operating and the issues or just general lack of quality I can see in the squad. Again, Sheffield United, couple of nice players, but generally speaking, you compare them to the rest of the league. Guys, the Premier League's really strong at the moment. If you actually look at, the bottom, I would say from teams maybe 12th to 16th, these are like good teams with some upside who could surprise some people. The quality across the league is actually really strong. Moving on now to the final relegated team, Everton. You look at Everton's squad, and obviously you look at somebody like Sean Dyche as well, and you think, they'll be fine, won't they? They can avoid relegation and they can snag a few draws and surprise people with a few wins and blah, this kind of stuff. I just don't know what the club are doing. I don't know what to make of them. I look at the squad and I think, there might be some potential. The reason why I've got them so low, there's no end product here at all. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is not a killer. Everton are not going to be a team that get a lot of chances in Premier League football matches. And in the very few chances that they do get, they need somebody to put the ball in the net. Dominic Calvert-Lewin isn't necessarily that guy. He can run channels, he can be everywhere, he can press, he can do lots of nice things, and he can get hot when he wants to. But I look at the injuries, the lack of chances he's going to get, and do I think he's a killer to be able to score and outscore teams? We're seeing it a lot in the top levels of football now. Teams are just trying to outscore other teams at this point. The defensive side and clean sheet side of football isn't as strong as maybe it used to be, especially at the top level. Look, Sean Dyche needs to figure something out. I think it's going to be another really stressful year if you're an Everton fan, and I can just see them going down this year. Again, this is the table. It's the 18th of July, right? This is version 1.0 of this list. If some nice additions come in, then maybe we'll see. But right now, not a lot of hope for Everton. Just avoiding the drop in 17th, I have AFC Bournemouth. Insane football team. Really up and down team last year. The reason why I've got them avoiding the drop though, and I've got Everton in, Iraola's obviously come in. He's been appointed relatively early. I believe it's Traore from Sassuolo, Justin Kluivert from Roma has also come in as well. Again, these aren't going to be total game changers, but you'd imagine these are the players and the caliber of players that Iraola wants. And he's got a good preseason with the whole team to get them ready and going and playing the way he wants. I think there'll be enough of a bump for Bournemouth that they'll be able to snag enough wins and play well enough maybe at home to get enough points that they need to do to avoid the drop. Hopefully for Bournemouth, again, I'm a South Coast boy. I want all these South Coast teams to do as well as they can. Hopefully Bournemouth can maybe do something, get a bit of money, establish themselves, consolidate Premier League status and all that stuff. But again, similarly to Sheffield United and to Luton, you look at the squad quality in general, and it's kind of underprepared, but maybe they'll be able to cook something up here. Who knows? In 16th, I have West Ham United. Now, West Ham United, it's an interesting one, right? In my opinion, they're in a worse place now than they were 365 days ago. Okay, and obviously a large part of that will be losing somebody like Declan Rice. Believe me, that is a huge blow. I'm way down on him compared to a lot of other people. I believe Thomas Partey is still a better player than Declan Rice. I believe that Arsenal have downgraded. Now, he's younger, he's English, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of upside to it as well. He could improve and get better. I still think Thomas Partey is a better holding midfielder than Declan Rice is. So Arsenal have downgraded in that spot. To me, though, Declan Rice is a 35, 40 million pound football player. If you saw the video James and I did recently, that's where I have him. To get over 105 million for Declan Rice is absolutely insane business. I give West Ham so much credit for holding out, standing firm, relying on the fact that Declan Rice is not going to screw over his old team and getting that amount of money. Now, they reinvest. They're smart with the money. Maybe version 2.0 of this list, right? Maybe I've got West Ham a little higher, right? You've got the likes of Paqueta, right? He's an absolute stud. He's absolutely amazing. But if they don't progress, we're going to see what happens there. I believe Gianluca Scamacca will be coming to Roma, coming home, right, which is something that I'm really kind of happy and excited about as well. Rice is gone, the dressing room change and stuff there, but we've seen with West Ham bringing out a Thomas Souček out of nowhere, a Kufal out of nowhere, all these kinds of guys we kind of think, oh, that's kind of interesting. Jared Bowen has his moments as well. You know, Said Benrahma, there's some talent in West Ham. And if they reinvest that 105 million, well, they could go way up this list. But right now, I just see them in a worse spot than they were in a year ago. And I can't pretend I didn't see what I saw last year. They need a goal scorer that's going to work. So, yeah, West Ham in 16th for me. 15th, I have Crystal Palace. Look, Palace are having a bit of an identity crisis, in my opinion. Wilfred Zaha's now gone. You know, I think everybody remembers those fantastic years of Yannick Bolasie on one side, Wilfred Zaha on the other, just absolutely cooking fullback. That was such fun to watch. I loved watching Palace games. Wolves gone. They've been in the Premier League like over 10 years now. Really impressive, actually. They've got Roy Hodgson as their manager. I just don't know where this team is going. I don't know what the mission statement is. I don't know what the ethos at the club is, generally speaking. And maybe a fan could tell me otherwise. I really like Eze. Obviously, he's a stud. Michael Elise, if he can come back and stay fit and get going, he's a good player. I still have hopes for Odsonne Edouard as well. I think he's a talented player as well. I don't think their ceiling is particularly high, but I think they've got enough players with X factor that will, you know, have them kind of avoiding the drop. So in my book, I'm kind of okay with Palace in 15th. I don't really see them deviating here too much. I can't see them doing too much in the transfer market personally to make me change my opinion on this. And again, Roy Hodgson is a steady Eddie. He knows what he's doing, but he's not going to blow anybody away. Okay. Moving on to 14th, I've got Nottingham Forest sitting in 14th. Look, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Forest kind of scared the hell out of me. This is a team, I think you remember me talking about this last year. There was so much coming in. There was so much going out. I didn't know what this was going to be. Wasn't overly familiar with the manager. There was some like real upside and some excitement on some players with the likes of, you know, Brennan Johnson, you know, somebody like Morgan Gibbs-White as well. I think that you end up thinking like, oh, wow, this could work. This could potentially work if everything comes together. A few players signed, you go, oh, okay, interesting. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And they clearly needed that cohesion and figuring each other out for a year. I like what they can be potentially. I just don't have the confidence that they'll get there. That's my problem. I think they'll lack maybe a bit of consistency. I think they're finding their feet a little bit more, and maybe this is the year where we'll see what Nottingham Forest are going to be for the future. But yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to dwell on this one too much. I got Forest in 14th. I don't think they're going to crazy outperform or crazy underperform that spot. So I'm pretty happy with it. They're still figuring themselves out. So I don't feel like I can make any sort of rational reasoning as to where they're going to end up. 13th, I got Fulham. I really like Fulham. Gun to my head, if you made me kind of support a team in England, I think I'd go for Fulham. I always really like Fulham. I've been to a bunch of games at Craven Cottage. I do really, really like it there. The thing that scares me most for Fulham is that Mitrovic is going to go. That he's probably going to leave. The Saudi Arabia offer is going to come up really big. I'm still kind of surprised that Mitrovic hasn't found himself at like kind of a decent European team. I thought he'd have left. Maybe they just can't hit the wages that he'd potentially want. And I think he has found a real home in West London. They found a number of kind of nice value pickups in the transfer market. The likes of Willian, you know, on a free transfer. The likes of Andres Pereira has been good. João Palhinha has been good as well. Again, Fulham aren't in terrible shape, and I think Marco Silva proved some doubters wrong last year and proves, yeah, he's a good manager. He's a good football manager. I think we're still waiting on a couple of additions. I think, again, the thing that scares me most is that if Mitrovic leaves, what is happening in the striker position and where are the goals going to come from? Again, we'll see. But similarly to Nottingham Forest in many ways, I just can't see Fulham overly outperforming 13th or underperforming. I think this is the kind of range that they will find themselves in. We'll move on to kind of the mid-table spots now. Okay, In 12th, Brentford. I really like Thomas Frank. Generally speaking, I really, really like Brentford. I actually lived near there for a little while. So, big fan of that team. And it feels like kind of a home team in a weird way for me. Always strong home form. Again, I mentioned I really like Thomas Frank. There's a good culture there. They really are steady Eddies, and they do deserve this spot in 12th. I'm just going to slot them in here. They do deserve this spot in 12th, but I will say, I think going forward, I do have a couple of concerns about where the club is going in terms of a development. Like with many things in life and in general, if you're not progressing or getting better and you're just standing still, you're actually going backwards. And I just get that sense maybe that's what's happening with Brentford here. Obviously, a couple of issues with Ivan Toney, with the betting stuff. Is that going to impact him going forward? I'm not sure. Where's this team going to be in the future? I just the squad quality, in my opinion, is kind of in and amongst the likes of Bournemouth and Sheffield United and Luton Town. I still don't look at a lot of the Brentford team and the squad and the players and go, these are Premier League quality football players. So for me, when that home form and that culture and that spirit goes, because maybe it's becoming a little stagnant and a little stale, or teams are figuring you out, I think the drop-off could be really, really dramatic and really, really fast. I'm going to say that doesn't happen yet, but this is going to be a really interesting kind of transitional season for Brentford, where I'd like to see something a little more, just in terms of the way the club operates and see how they do going forward. Okay, one I'm going to spend a little more time on now. Guys, I've got Burnley. We've already talked about the other two promoted teams. Guys, I got Burnley in 11th. Burnley are fascinating, first and foremost. I think that if somebody told me that Burnley were going to get relegated, I'd go, yeah, fair enough. I think if somebody even told me that Burnley cracked the top half of the table, I'd also say, oh, okay, fair enough. Like I'd be okay with it. I have got them in 11th, which I think is maybe a little higher than most people would have them. First of all, go watch Vincent Kompany on the overlap with Gary Neville. Really, really interesting watch to hear about his philosophies, his opinions on football. Obviously, his playing career was absolutely stellar. One of the greatest centre backs, really of all time. Definitely, one of the best Manchester City players of all time. And if you actually look at Burnley, we're far removed from Sean Dyche Burnley, guys. This is a completely different proposition, this team. I just want to read some stuff off for you here. Only 3 losses in the Championship. That's amazing by any metric. There's a number of Premier League teams who, if they drop right down to the Championship, they would be looking at more than 3 losses. It is a tough league. So for Burnley to only have 3 losses in that big season in the Championship is insane. More goals than anybody else. But you might think, oh, well, if they're more attacking, then they'll leak a few more goals. Still with the best defence in the league. This is the one, though, that I think is most interesting. 64.6% average possession last year in the Championship. There's no way that that's going to be matched or even gotten close to in the Premier League. I would be amazed. I'm not ruling it out, but I would be amazed. The chances of them having even close to that in the Premier League, I would just be amazed. Okay. Now, in my view, caveman brain, right? Do you stick or twist? Do you go, no, we're Burnley. We play a certain kind of way. We're just coming off one of the best Championship seasons that any team we've really ever seen has done. And we're going to stick to our guns and we're going to play our football. Or do you play conservative? Do you do low block? And do you go back to what a lot of weaker teams do when they come up? Try and stay in it for a draw, nick a 1-goal victory, and then try and outplay teams that they're similar to at home and try and pick up wins that way. Listening to Vincent Kompany, he's going to stick to what he knows and he's going to go for it. And I think it's going to catch a lot of teams off guard. And if they can do it with confidence, and I think Vincent Kompany is the kind of guy who can instill that, I don't see anything wrong with Burnley finishing 11th. I think it's going to be an attractive place for people to go. I think people will want to play for Vincent Kompany as well, so their recruitment should be good. Still got some time in the transfer window left. They haven't made any overly splashy signings. And Kompany even spoke when he spoke with Gary Neville about, hey, listen, if you're good enough, you play. If you're not good enough, you go. It's professional football. So again, maybe Burnley will sign a couple of players that are going to fit their philosophy. I'm really optimistic about Burnley this year, and I think they will surprise a lot of people. I don't think 11th is overly crazy. A team though just pipping them, and again maybe a team that I have a little higher than everybody else. Wolves. Look, guys, I think the main thing, and there's a team I'm going to talk about here in a second as well, the quality of manager we have in the Premier League is mad. It's absolutely mad. Even for teams down this kind of part of the table here, we've got some really, really top managers. And Lopetegui, guys, you don't get the Real Madrid job and the Spain job because you're a slob and you don't know what you're doing. Lopetegui is a fantastic football manager, really, really good. I kind of generally speaking like the state of the squad. I know Neves is gone, but guys, lest we forget, Kalajdzic came in and everyone was really excited, and then he did his knee. Kalajdzic is back, okay? And if he can rediscover his form and fulfill his potential, they've got a serious player there who can be very disruptive and score plenty of goals for this Wolves team. So interested to see how he plays when he comes back. I'm going to be keeping an eye on him. Mateus Cunha from Atletico Madrid is just another great signing, which a team like Wolves, if you're attracting players of that caliber, is great. Mateus Nunes in central midfield as well is a really, really nice player. Pedro Neto is still there again. A little bit of a maybe hot take of mine. I think Pedro Neto is a better player than Diogo Jota. When Liverpool were trying to sign a player from Wolves, I was like, I would go for Pedro Neto. If I was you, I wouldn't go for Diogo Jota. Neves is going to be a miss. I just still feel like there are some other players going in there. Look, at the end of last season, there were a couple of teams where I thought, hey, watch out next year. Wolves are one of them. And again, I think 10th is me being a bit conservative because I still don't know what they're going to do in the transfer window, and a couple of teams have just outperformed them this off season. But I think 10th for Wolves is pretty fair. Okay. First one where I know I'm going to definitely catch some slack here, guys. I got Spurs finishing 9th. First of all, I don't expect Harry Kane to be a Spurs player. Okay, plain and simple. I don't expect Harry Kane to be a Spurs player come the end of the transfer window. Maybe he plays 2 or 3 game weeks for Spurs, but I think whether it's Manchester United, whether it's Paris Saint-Germain, whether it's Bayern Munich, whether it's Chelsea, I just do expect Harry Kane to not be at Spurs anymore. I think he'll want to stay in the Premier League. He'll want to stay in England again. I still think a very, very late window Manchester United sale is going to happen. They'll pay a lot of money for him, but I just think it'll happen. And then Spurs need to reinvest the money and do their thing. Ange Postecoglou is a good football manager. He did well in the Scottish League. He's done well in a couple of other leagues in the world, much weaker leagues. Just because he's had success especially in the Scottish League, I'm not giving him too much credit. Steven Gerrard did amazing things at Rangers, for example. I don't think anybody thinks that Steven Gerrard, with his time in Saudi Arabia, is going to be setting the world alight with his managerial ability. The one thing I will say though, and this is just my opinion, managers and leaders from Australia, from New Zealand, sport is a different thing there. It's a religion there. And I know a lot of places will say, Argentina and Brazil will say, well, football's a religion here too. It's like, well, that's fine. But in Australia and New Zealand, it's rugby, it's cricket. Football's still a big deal out there, but your whole life is kind of orientated around sport. That's why, especially in a rugby setting as well, most of the better managers and coaches are from that part of the world. Ange Postecoglou, I think, is going to bring some of that culture of professionalism, accountability, and just working hard to this Spurs team. It's going to be a culture change that I think they do really, really need. We've seen the ability for him to manage these kind of teams. My worry, I think he lacks that X factor and that tactical sophistication to do it against the big boys. I think Spurs are going to become a very likable team, a hardworking team. I think they're going to do it as a team, as a group. It's going to be great. But I just think that in the kind of killer moments, they're going to let themselves down because they don't have that Jose Mourinho, that Antonio Conte, that character there, which can you make that one change at that one time, or you say that one thing at the right time, which is what you need in football. It's a very, very emotional sport. It's not as composed as some of these other sports. So again, interested to see what happens. It's going to be a very interesting management style and interesting man management style, and how that comes across for the Spurs squad. But I just think that they'll be more likable. I just can't see them knitting it together and sorting something out, especially if Kane doesn't want to be there and he's kept and is constantly thinking about, I can start talking to teams in January, and what's going to happen with Son, and obviously Kulusevski's come in but hasn't been great since he was away, and no. I don't know. I've got a weird feeling about Spurs right now, and I feel like the Spurs ownership have accepted the fact that they can't compete for Champions League places anymore. They do not have the financial, not even the financial capability, the financial will to compete with these other teams. And again, I'm going to get off on a massive tangent here in this video, which should really be 30 minutes, 40 minutes. It's going to turn into an hour-long video. But guys, Man City, Newcastle United, Manchester United, especially if these Qatari owners come in as well, Chelsea, that there are just teams who will just spend and spend and spend and will always be competitive. Spurs have to be at their very, very, very best just to crack Champions League places, whereas a lot of those other teams that I've just mentioned can be bang average and get those Champions League places. And guys, this is the environment that we find ourselves in football at the moment. Again, the less I say, the better, because I'll go on forever. But yeah, Spurs in ninth. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments and criticisms and concerns there. Kane moving is going to obviously change things. The player they bring in to replace them, is Richarlison going to get more game time? Are they going to buy some defenders and fullbacks, centre backs? What's the goalkeeper situation going to be for them, and all this kind of stuff? But Spurs at ninth at the moment. It's my version 1.0. It's not my final one, but I know some of you might be thinking, hang on a minute, that seems a bit crazy to me. In eighth, I've got Brighton. Yeah, look, guys, Brighton and Premier League darlings. If you're a football hipster, if you're a subscriber to me and James, you probably are a football hipster. But these are Premier League darlings. We saw breakouts from the likes of Mitoma. This year as well, guys. I think it's his first name, Julio Enciso, Evan Ferguson, and João Pedro. I think it's like 18, 19, and 21, that little attacking trio there. Guys, exciting attacking future for Brighton. I think that's really, really cool. Keep an eye on some of those players coming through, especially in Enciso. I really like him. I think they're going to have similar issues to another team that I'm going to mention here shortly. Guys, Brighton are no slobs. This is a good football team. It's a well-managed, well-run football team. They have a philosophy, they have a style, the recruitment matches that. Again, I don't think everybody is amazed by the likes of Yves Bissouma, and then Moises Caicedo comes in and does basically the exact same job, and then is going to go to Chelsea for 80 million maybe, right? Whoever they bring in that spot, in the same way that if they lose another player, they can just bring someone in, right? Trossard leaves, right? Mitoma comes to light. Oh my God, right? This is what they do. Brighton is a well-oiled machine at the moment. They can't compete at the very top yet, but they're making the most out of what they have. What I will say, all these teams that I've already mentioned are going to start treating Brighton like a Europa League team, like a Champions League team. There's going to be a lot more, hey, we're not going to try and play football against you because you do that well. So we're going to sit here and we're going to let you, come on, try and break us down. We're going to get you on the break. They're going to start being treated differently. Do Brighton have the patience? Do Brighton have the creativity? Do they have all that kind of the nerve to be able to beat these teams, break these teams down when the other teams don't want to play against them, don't want to come out and play against them? They're going to be treated differently, which is why I don't see them maybe doing as well in some games as maybe they should. They'll dominate possession, they'll dominate passing, but I think we may see a slight drop in goals perhaps, just because of the respect that other teams are giving them. And then guys, as you develop as a football team, this is what happens. All right. Again, I sounded really down on Brighton there. 8th is still an unbelievable achievement for Brighton and Hove Albion. That's insane. 7th, Aston Villa. I'm really impressed with them. I think they're going to surprise a lot of teams. Similarly to Wolves, guys, Unai Emery's no slob. These are top quality football managers we have in the Premier League at kind of middle of the road teams that we've got right now. This is the best league in the world for entertainment and just overall quality. It's insane. the likes of Pau Torres coming in is huge, especially at his age as well. He's ready to perform and ready to push Villa on to the next stage. Yuri Tielemans on a free transfer. I was gutted Roma didn't go for him more aggressively. I think they're going to be hard enough to beat defensively, especially with, again, the likes of Pau Torres coming in. Emi Martinez, obviously, still there between the sticks as well. They're going to be hard to beat, but guys, there's quality up top for them to go out and beat teams and score goals. I still don't think we've seen the best of like Emiliano Buendia, right? Leon Bailey, Ollie Watkins is a stud. They've got some serious talent in this team, and I believe Diaby as well from Leverkusen is a guy they're trying to sign now. There's money to spend. I'm excited for them, but for me, 7th for Villa. I do think there are just six better teams, but I think they'll surprise a lot of people this upcoming year. Villa have been quietly chipping away at creating a really, really nice football team. In its 6th, I have Newcastle United. Now, I didn't say the name because I didn't want to spoil it, but similarly to Brighton, I think Newcastle are going to have a tough year. All these teams that I've already put on here are going to start treating Newcastle United like a Champions League team because, guys, guess what? They are a Champions League team. There's going to be a lot more. You have the ball. But the reason why the likes of Sandro Tonali has been brought in is because there's going to be more recycling of the football. Newcastle are going to be more respected this season than they basically ever have been before. They're going to find it more difficult. They're being treated like a big team. They're going to find out the hard way. When you get hit with the conservative low block, it can be frustrating. Games that would have been wins might now become draws. I will still say I think things are still moving in the right direction. If rumours are to be believed, they're going for players like Kvaratskhelia from Napoli. Insane. But, we'll have to see what happens here. What's going to happen with Isak? What's going to happen with Callum Wilson? Because there is going to need to be a slow development to this, possession-dominant football team that has to break teams down. Because, hey, Newcastle, nobody thinks you're a bottom-half team anymore. This is a team that's going to be fighting for Champions League places and then for titles in the next 10 years. You need to start playing differently. Just coming into the Premier League and trying to stay in the league, you play a different way than if you're trying to go and win the thing. And again, I think Newcastle will have a year of transition, a year of adjustment in mentality and getting, mentally you have to get back into the headspace of being a big team again to be reckoned with. It's hard. It's difficult. 5th, I have Chelsea. Yep, just missing out on Champions League again, which again is not good. I think Pochettino is going to kind of go back to basics, basically. Undeniable charisma. Everybody loves Mauricio Pochettino. There's going to be a big culture shift straight away. We know the amount of turnover in terms of players coming in terms of players going out. There's way too much talent in this squad to not think that if it does all come together, that these guys can't go to the very, very top. I don't think it will happen quickly, but I think that there's going to be a vast improvement on last year. I would be amazed if Chelsea played anything near the way they did last year. Consistency is going to be the issue. I think we're going to see spells where we go, oh my God, this team could be champions in a couple of years. But then we're also going to see spells of they have no idea what they're doing. Again, they're so young, they're so talented. And you've got, to a certain extent, you've arguably got the best guy in terms of nurturing that talent going forward. So yeah, Chelsea 5th for me. Again, maybe a little high. Some of you might think that maybe that is a little high. I'm not too sure. Right, moving on to these Champions League places. I have Liverpool Football Club in 4th. People seem to be really overhyping Liverpool this year, in my opinion. And I've seen lots of comments on Twitter and stuff about, oh, Liverpool are going to be back. They're going to be going for the title, blah, blah. I really don't see it that way, guys. I think we'll see an improvement for sure, but I really don't see the top of the top. I think that this 4th spot is going to be a serious battle between Liverpool, Chelsea and Newcastle. I think that's going to be a huge battle for 4th spot. The Liverpool team that had all that success, right? Champions League, Premier League, insane time period. And again, in my opinion, with how good they were for the time period that they were that good for, I think they underperformed. I think they would tell you a Champions League is amazing, don't get it wrong, but in the Premier League, just one title with that team, I think you can look back at that and say that it's kind of a disappointing return, especially if you compare it to the likes of Manchester City. It's been poorly handled transition. Trent Alexander-Arnold is a central midfielder. I'm excited from an England perspective, we got right backs growing on trees. Let's see what Trent can do, right, in a midfield with maybe a Jude Bellingham, a Mason Mount, a Calvin Phillips, a Declan Rice. Like, let's see what can happen here. I'm excited for it. It's an experiment, though, guys. This isn't a sure thing. Pre-season's not going to give Jurgen Klopp a lot to think about with Trent as a central midfielder. He needs to play Premier League minutes in this role. Is he going to get found out tactically? How's it going to work? Is he going to lose the ball in certain areas? Blah, blah, blah. What's his carrying going to be like? We'll have to see. It's a huge, huge experiment. And guys, again, I haven't got this in front of me. I should have prepared better. Naby Keita's gone. Henderson will likely go. Ox is gone. Thiago Alcantara, I believe, is rumoured to be leaving as well. Who am I missing? Fabinho is still there, but again, he's got links to Saudi Arabia, I believe, as well. Guys, it's a completely new midfield. Alexis McAllister, I think, is wildly overrated, similarly to the way Yves Bissouma was, similarly to the way that I think Moises Caicedo is. I think this Brighton team lends itself to be playing well within a system that helps you play. I don't think Alexis McAllister has that much talent. He's coming in. Is he going to be better than Jordan Henderson's been for Liverpool? Absolutely not. If Fabinho goes, that's a huge loss as well. So again, I'm kind of ranting now, but Alexis McAllister, I don't think is the biggest improvement ever. Dominic Szoboszlai, we'll see. I mean, it's an attacking midfield spot. It's going to be interesting, but the whole midfield is different. I don't love that. And you're throwing Trent in there. Virgil van Dijk, again, he felt like he took a step back. He's probably going to take another step back as well. Henderson, again, if he does end up going, that dressing room chemistry that Liverpool are going to be dealing with, that's a huge, huge difference. He's a big personality and one of the best remaining leaders in world football. So, a shame for him. Guys, also, despite the optimism, he gets the number 9 shirt, whatever. Darwin Núñez, I will have to see. I don't think he's a guarantee of goals at all. He's a physical, presence. He can run channels. He can bring people into play. He will get the odd goal, but I don't think he's a killer. Like, I don't think Liverpool will ever win a league title with Darwin Núñez as their starting number 9, personally. Mo Salah, a year older as well. Obviously, the injuries to the likes of Diaz, to the likes of Jota, it feels like it's been a bit of a plague for Liverpool lately. I'm not as high as everybody else on Liverpool. And actually, the more I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of talking myself into moving Liverpool down to maybe 5th, 6th or 7th. But anyway, maybe for another video. I've got them in 4th still at the moment. In 3rd, Manchester United. Look, guys, Andre Onana is... I don't think it can be spoken about enough about how big of a deal that is in terms of signing for Manchester United. Erik ten Hag will now be able to play his style of football within his philosophy, without any sort of restriction. David De Gea, it meant that Erik ten Hag, I don't think, could do all the things that he wanted to do. He now has a goalkeeper where he can do anything and everything. I think that Manchester United will be able to beat comfortably the weaker teams in the league. The difficulty for Manchester United is always going to be, and we saw it plenty of times last year, how good are they going to be in the big games? How are they going to do against Man City? How are they going to do against Arsenal? How are they going to do against Liverpool? How are they going to do against Chelsea, Newcastle? How are they going to do against these big teams? Again, they concede 8 goals sometimes. They concede 5 and 6, like, far too often. There's a lack of consistency in those big games in terms of how they perform. But I do think they'll be able to pick up plenty of points against the lower part of the table. And as long as that goes up, again, what I will say, there are 3 teams, I think, that can win the title. This is where the list starts. I think Manchester United can win the league this upcoming year. I do. I think there are 3 teams that can do it. I think Manchester United is one of them. They're the 3rd in that list of 3. The other 2 obviously coming up. You already know who they are because process of elimination. But Manchester United are one of 3 teams who I think could potentially win a Premier League this year. And again, we'll just have to see how it goes. Erik ten Hag seems to just be dealing with every single thing that comes his way beautifully. And, you have to give him credit for dealing with these very high pressure situations. 2nd place, I do have Arsenal. I do. And I know probably a lot of you are not very shocked by that. Look, guys, the ownership at Arsenal are showing behaviours that they think that they've got a team that can win the league. Based on last year's showing, I agree. I think they can also win the league. And Should they have won the league last year? I'm going to say probably not. I think anybody who thinks Arsenal had a bad year last year, you're insane. You're insane. Show me where your prediction was where Arsenal would have finished last year before the season started, and then show me where they did finish and tell me they've not had a good season. Now, I know the argument could be, yeah, but look where they were and then look where they went to. It's like, well, that's fine, but the results are the results. And if you just move them in a different order, you would still go, oh, they had a good. So, okay, there's peaks and troughs of a season. It's a young team, right? It's still a relatively speaking new manager. I think Arsenal had a fantastic year. Now, what I like is their behavior is we're going to try and win. We're not just going to do an Arsene Wenger, we'll just deal with Champions League. They're trying to win, okay? Kai Havertz has been underutilized and underperformed at Chelsea, and they've signed him. Okay, it cost a fair amount of money, but he's a good age. Mikel Arteta will be able to work with him, and we'll see what happens. It's a huge, huge upgrade over Granit Xhaka. Huge. Declan Rice, I still think, is a downgrade on Thomas Partey. Okay, I do. They paid more than double what I'd have paid for somebody like Declan Rice. And we'll see. I don't know if the midfield is that much better, is my point. You downgrade at holding midfield, you upgrade at 8. Okay, that's fine. I love the Urian Timber pickup. I think that's really, really nice. I spoke with a friend about this recently. If you would imagine keeping hold of Gabriel, keeping hold of William Saliba at some point is going to be tricky. You'd imagine the Real Madrids of the world, Barcelona's of the world, except these huge, huge teams that it's a privilege to play for. I'm not saying it's not a privilege to play for Arsenal, but it's going to be an enticing offer, right? Gabriel, I believe, is Brazilian. Is he going to want to do Real Madrid at some point? William Saliba is French. Is he going to is he going to want to maybe look at taking over from somebody like Marquinhos at Paris Saint-Germain if the right offer comes in for him? So Julian Timber is a really, really nice pickup as well. I think that's a very smart pickup, good value on that deal as well. Ramsdale's good. The fullback's in decent shape. Again, the midfield, I don't think has gotten any better, but it's different. Saka is a year older, a little bit more development. Same with Martinelli. Jesus is back and firing. Maybe they get another forward in there as well. I like what Arsenal can be. I really do. But there's one Manchester City. They're the champions. They're the best manager. And I'm not going to lie to you, just in terms of the way the shape that the squad is in and the rumours and whatnot, Arsenal have had a much better offseason than Man City. And I would argue at this point in time, I'd probably have Arsenal as champions. But Man City are not going to be ending the year like this. Okay, they're not. In the same way that I've got Spurs in 9th, because, guys, I don't think Kane's going to be there. In the same way with Man City, Bernardo Silva's going to go, Mahrez is going to go. They'll sign Kvaratskhelia. They'll sign Rafael Leao. They'll pick up some outrageous player that they have no right to sign because they want to work with Pep, they want to work at Man City, and they have the money to do it and spend it. Are they going to go for a couple fullbacks at some point? They need a central midfielder. Are you guys going to seriously be amazed if Man City's summer is Kovacic, Nicola Barella, Kvaratskhelia, and Joshua Kimmich to replace Kyle Walker? That could easily be a summer for Manchester City. Easily. Haaland is still there. De Bruyne is still there. Rodri is still there. Stones, Ruben Diaz, Edison. Guys, again, it's the champions. It's the best manager. I expect the reinforcements to come in. Pep's going to do things differently again. A common narrative people like to get into is, well, but they'll get found out. But guys, Pep changes things all the time. That those fullbacks who were unbelievably explosive and crazy and blah, blah, blah. What did we see? James mentioned this a lot, and this was such a great point by him. These fullbacks who periodically, let's be honest, would get cooked by wingers, really top quality wingers. Like, again, Rafael Leao is a great example, would cook fullbacks. So he signs in Akanji, in Ake, in these guys who can play fullback, but are really centre-backs who love one-on-one defending, nullifies these people. Vinicius Jr., forget about it, bro, right? They just nullify them. Nobody plays with 4 centre-backs. I mean, they are kind of, and they aren't centre-backs. They're versatile. But let's look at their body of work and who they are. They're centre-backs, really, and Pep puts them a fullback. There's going to be another thing I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be another thing. Ilkay Gundogan is now gone. The replacement supposedly is Kovacic. I think Kovacic is great. I Again, I know it's boring. Again, I want to be right over anything. This is not for clickbait as much as some of you might think, well, you got Spurs in 9th, or, oh, you got Burnley in 11th, or Villa in 7th. This is all clickbait stuff. It's really not. I want to be right at the end of the day. And this is my way of doing it and my theory of what I think is going to happen. I've probably gone on way longer than I should have done. This is version 1.0 of my Premier League prediction. There will be a version 2, there'll be a version 3, there'll be a version 4, there might even be a version 5. I want to do it before the start of the season, maybe in a couple of weeks as well, after a few more transfers have gone through, before the start of the season, and then also after the end of the transfer window as well, just to get a gauge of where I'm at and how things are developing. Guys, I've talked a lot, and it's just me, so I've talked a lot. Let me know your thoughts. Luton, Sheffield United, and Everton fans, how do you feel about me saying you're going to get relegated? Fulham, Forest, Palace, West Ham, Bournemouth. Am I giving you too much hype? Should you be going down, or should you be higher in this list? Brighton, Spurs, Wolves, Burnley, Brentford, mid-table. Happy with that? Or am I undervaluing or overvaluing you? Europa and Conference League, I think that's really strong. Chelsea, Newcastle, and Villa. Champions League places, Arsenal, Man United, and Liverpool, and champions Manchester City. Guys, let me know what you think. If you're not subscribed, please hit subscribe. I'd really, really appreciate it. And until next time, I'll see you.